I was the head of production at South Pacific at that stage, and TVNZ had expressed a wish to have a soap opera, and we'd looked at a range of different shows, a police show, a law show, and a medical show. And there were a lot of people involved in these discussions. So there was, you know, who invented Shortland St? Well, there were a lot of people involved.
I think at the time that Shortland St came on in 1992, there had been a gap in drama after the death of the in-house drama department. So there'd only been patchy things on the television, and I think that people were quite unused to hearing New Zealand accents, and also because it had quite a lot of young people in it. I think it was the first time that some people had actually heard genuine Kiwi accents on the telly. We're talking early days, really, before the rise of reality television. The
biggest thing was really, once the show did go on air, getting the public to buy it, because there was a lot of protest against the nurses, for instance, did not see it as being them being well represented, but it wasn't really a show about nursing. It was a show about relationships from the beginning.
It was really good to be in at that stage where, you know, you were proud of telling New Zealand stories, and we got really bad reviews to start off with, and then they started to sort of, you know, become much more flattering. I can remember a friend of mine who said to me, "You're not going to go into that thing Shortland St, are you? Oh, you're prostituting your art, you know, oh, how can you do it?" Then about a year later he said, "Oh, isn't it going well? Aren't you doing well?" There was quite a different perception.
I got to work with great people, Andrew Binns, Angie Dotchin, Joe Davison, all the original cast were fantastic. And we didn't know what we were letting ourselves in for. So there was a beautiful camaraderie there, because people now know. If you go for an audition for Shortland St and you get into that cast, you know exactly what you're in for. You know how much publicity you're going to get, you know what notoriety you're going to get, and how much public attention you're going to get. Whereas back then we were so green, no one really understood what was going to happen.
And the writers and the directors were so top-notch that it worked, and it was our best. Well, it was the only drama, so it meant that everybody who was the best was working on it. And that was the day, you know, Tim Morrison and Martin Henderson and Paul Gittins and Elizabeth McRae and Michael Galvin and Robyn Malcolm, and we just had such an amazing group of people.
Shortland Street's a real family, you know. I mean, you love and hate each other all the time, and you go through big journeys together and stuff. And I loved it. The thing I thought was hilarious was I always thought I was playing this kind of homely character. And the writers who wrote Outrageous Fortune, they both worked on Shortland St, were key writers on Shortland St. And they told me that their nickname for Ellen was the slut in the cardie. I was appalled. I never thought that that's kind of who she was. But apparently that's how they viewed her.
With Shortland St, the writing has always tried to tackle interesting, topical social issues that have relevance within the country at the time that the show's screening. Never in a particularly confronting way, because it's not that kind of show.
Every week you've got to come up with 2.5 hours worth of story, commercial hours, which is. So 5 episodes worth of story every week. And it's really amusing when you read academics and whatever theorising about TV writing and things like that, and you go, what planet are you from? We get there on a Monday morning, we go, what the f do we do this week?
The people who I've storylined with on Shortland St are people I consider my best friends in the world, because you bring so much of yourself to it. You're sitting there talking about love, desire and hate the whole time, and it's thrilling and exciting.
One of the most important things with soap is keeping up with the story, but you can't keep up with it on screen because it hasn't even screened yet. So you're reading piles and piles and piles of scene breakdowns in between what you've written before and what you're writing this time.
And you find that when you come in talking about, oh, you know, how does Chris Warner feel about Rachel McKenna this week? Does he love her? Does he hate her? Is he indifferent to her? By the time you pour out your emotions and tell stories from your own life or stories of your friends, because I've mined the lives of many of my friends for Shortland St, you get to know intimately your fellow writers.
You're not in Guatemala now, Dr. Ropata. Carrie Burton, she was the nurse. And of course, I just come back from Guatemala. I'm a bit of like a third world doctor. If I remember, someone was having trouble with a birth. So I had to perform this kind of manual breech birth kind of thing. And that's what caused the line to come out. What are you doing, Dr. Ropata? You're not in Guatemala now.
everyone has a different story about that line, but Jason's story was that he edited it out and I put it back in, and then we argued about whether it should be. I don't know, and I honestly can't remember. I remember it being a very camp line, but also thinking that it was funny, and the show was always supposed to be funny. I mean, on a good day, they used to say Shortland St was New Zealand's best sitcom.
This program goes out every night of the year, bar about a fortnight over Christmas, New Year. And for a number of the Mondays, it's an hour-long episode. So effectively, we are producing in 1 week almost as many minutes as the Hobbit film, which took a year and a half.
You get 15 minutes, and to nail that scene, to set it up sometimes, to block it, to rehearse it with the cameras, to get sound all happy, get everybody knowing their lines, and in the can after 15 minutes. And if you don't get it, what happens is that it accumulates. So if you lose 3 minutes off that, then that builds and that builds and that builds, and you can end up, you know, you can end up having the producer sitting next to you after a while.
You're doing 20, 30 scenes a day sometimes, and every scene you get very good at going, what's important about the scene? What do I need to get? What story are we telling? Technically, you get very good at working out that stuff. So it gets rid of a lot of the wishy-washy indecision of an actor. And it also kicks your ego out the door when it comes to work a lot, I think. You just have to get on, you have to do it.
I remember in the first week getting a call from Damon going, oh, do you think you could get in here about an hour earlier because we're up? Oh, I've got these things to do and I was going to go and do that. And then he sort of laughed and went, sorry. I couched that as a question, didn't I? You need to come in an hour earlier because we're up. I was like, ah, right, okay. My life has now been committed to this machine.
I'm not one of these people who can just turn up and deliver lines off the cuff. I have to know them, unfortunately, and it meant that I had to sit down and work to learn them. Other people could learn them 30 seconds before they went on, and it didn't bother them. I would freak out if I can't remember a line. It would really bother me, and it would throw me, and I would be shaky for the rest of the day. And if you've got 13 scenes to do on a Friday afternoon, then you know you've got a lot to get through. And so there was pressure from that point of view.
I always just try to know my lines back to front, you know, and it's just so important on this show not to be looking for your lines all the time, you know. You can't really give a relaxed and a playful and kind of an honest performance while half of your brain is trying to remember the words, you know. You really have to, that has to be kind of instinctive so that you can just kind of let rip and play with the scene.
So here I am, we're there on the first day's shooting, you know, I've got my script and I'm looking for the character arc and the story arc and all this kind of thing. Because I had no knowledge of what, you know, soap drama really was like. And while the young actors took to it like ducks to water, I actually struggled a bit at the beginning.
It's kind of made me have to take it a little bit more serious and put more work and effort into it. You know, you can't kind of go, oh, I'll come back to that. You have to always be reading your scripts and finding out where your storylines are and trying to get a hold and grasp of where your character's journey is. So in that sense, it's made me kind of pick my game up a little bit more.
The connections people make with you are often manifested in the most extraordinary ways. I used to get cards of condolence when one of my husbands died, or if something belonged to me was stolen, people would post in replacements. That's, you know, they had suspended their disbelief to that extent.
And I was introduced to one person as we were going around the circle, and this particular person someone went, oh, this is Stelios, and she went, no, you're not. You're that doctor. And she punched me. She punched me on the chin, like actually punched me for whatever current crimes Johnny was committing on the television there. And I stood there, and the world kind of shook a little bit as it does. And I was like, what exactly is going on in your head right now?
It's gotten us as New Zealanders used to hearing our own voices and being okay with it. So it's, you know, it's been a great platform for other shows to leap from, and even our film, and, you know, and we're really good at it, and I just love being involved, and it's given me the opportunity to know almost every actor in this country, and yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world. And everyone works really hard, and I appreciate that.
I still think it's one of the most incredibly important parts of our entire drama scene. That's not just television, that's stage and screen as well, because without it you're just not going to have the people, and you're not going to have the experience, and you're not going to have the practice. You don't want people doing television like we used to do it, you know, there's a camera, go and shoot something.